Comma meets Karen.
My name is Sarah, and until last year, I believed the worst thing a neighbor could do is leave their trash cans out too long or play loud music after midnight. Then I met Karen Miller. I lived in a quiet neighborhood outside Columbus, Ohio. It was the kind of place where people waved while walking their dogs, children rode bikes along the sidewalks, and everyone seemed to know everyone else's business. I had bought my small blue house after years of saving. It was not huge or fancy, but it belonged to me. I loved the white porch, the maple tree in the front yard, and the little garden behind the house where I grew tomatoes, peppers, and herbs. Karen lived next door in a large gray house with perfect flower beds and a lawn that looked like it had never seen a single weed. The first time we met, she walked over while I was carrying boxes inside. She smiled, but it was not a warm smile. "You are the new owner?"
she asked.
"Yes," I said.
"I'm Sarah."
"I'm Karen. I have lived here for 18 years. The way she said it made it sound less like an introduction and more like a warning. She looked past me at the moving boxes. "Just so you know, this is a very quiet neighborhood." "I like quiet," I said. "And we take pride in keeping things looking respectable." I looked at my house. The grass was cut. The porch was clean. Nothing looked wrong. I planned to take good care of it. Karen gave a small nod. "I hope so." Then she turned around and walked back home. I stood there for a moment, wondering if I had imagined the strange tone in her voice. I soon learned that I had not. During my first week, Karen complained that my car was parked too close to the edge of my driveway. The next week, she told me my recycling bin was visible from the street. A few days later, she knocked on my door and said the wind chime on my porch was disturbing the peace. It was a tiny wind chime. It barely made a sound. At first, I tried to stay polite. I moved the recycling bin. I adjusted my car. I even took down the wind chime. I wanted peace. I worked from home as a graphic designer, and the last thing I needed was a neighborhood war. But giving Karen what she wanted did not calm her down. It encouraged her. She started sending me text messages about my lawn. "Grass is getting long. Your porch light was on after midnight." A delivery driver blocked my mailbox for 3 minutes. I did not know how she got my phone number. Later, I found out she had asked another neighbor for it. One Saturday morning, I was pulling weeds in my garden when Karen appeared beside the fence. "You planted tomatoes close to the property line," she said. "They are several feet away. The vines spread. I will keep them trimmed. They may attract animals." "They are tomatoes, Karen." She crossed her arms. "This neighborhood has standards." I stood up and brushed dirt from my gloves. "So, does basic respect." Her eyes narrowed. "Excuse me? I have been polite since I moved in, but you keep finding reasons to complain. My garden is on my property. My car is on my driveway. My recycling bin is behind my house. You need to stop." Karen stared at me like no one had ever spoken to her that way. "You will regret that attitude," she said. Then she walked away. That was the moment everything changed. 2 days later, I received a letter from the Homeowners Association. The letter claimed that I had violated neighborhood rules by installing an unauthorized structure in my backyard. I had not installed any structure. I called the association office and spoke to a woman named Lisa. She checked the complaint. "It says you built a storage shed," Lisa said. "I do not own a shed." There was a pause. "Can you send us photos of your backyard?" I sent photos immediately. The complaint was dismissed. A week later, another letter arrived. This one claimed I was running an illegal business from my home because delivery trucks were coming too often. I received design equipment, office supplies, and normal online orders. Nothing about it was illegal. Again, I called Lisa. Again, the complaint was dismissed. Then came a complaint about noise. Then one about pets. I did not own a pet. Then one about people coming and going at strange hours. The people were my sister Amy and my friend Jess, who sometimes visited for dinner. Every complaint came from Karen. Lisa never directly said it, but it was obvious. One afternoon, Lisa called me. "Sarah, I cannot officially tell you who is filing these complaints," she said, "but I can tell you that the board is becoming concerned about misuse of the reporting system. I think we both know who is doing it." Lisa sighed. "Document everything." That advice turned out to be important. I created a folder on my computer. I saved every text message from Karen. I scanned every complaint letter. I wrote down the dates and times of every conversation. I installed a doorbell camera and 2 security cameras outside my house. At first, I only wanted proof that I was not breaking any rules. Then Karen crossed a line I could not ignore. One Friday evening, I came home from dinner with Amy and noticed that several plants in my garden had been pulled from the ground. My tomato plants were broken. My herbs had been crushed. A wooden planter box was overturned. I felt sick. I checked the camera footage. At 2:14 that afternoon, Karen walked through the side gate into my backyard. She looked around, grabbed my tomato plants, and pulled them out. Then she kicked the planter box. She did not know the camera was there. I watched the video 3 times. I could not believe it. Amy stood beside me, staring at the screen. "You need to call the police," she said. "I do not want this to become worse. It is already worse." She was right. I called the non-emergency police number. An officer named Mark came to my house. I showed him the footage. He watched silently. "Do you want to file a report?" he asked.
Yes.
He walked next door and spoke to Karen. I could not hear everything, but I heard her voice rising. A few minutes later, she came storming toward my driveway. "You called the police on me?" she shouted. Officer Mark stepped between us. "Ma'am, go back to your property." "She is lying," Karen said, pointing at me. "She has been harassing me for months." "I have video," I said. Karen's face changed. Only for a second. Then she recovered. "That camera is pointed at my house. That is illegal. It is pointed at my backyard. She is spying on me." Officer Mark told Karen to go home. She finally did, but she turned back before entering her house. This is not over. For once, I believed her. The police report did not lead to an arrest because the damage was minor, but Karen was officially warned to stay off my property. I thought that might stop her. Instead, she hired a lawyer. 2 weeks later, a man in a suit knocked on my door and handed me legal papers. Karen was suing me. She claimed I had caused emotional distress, invaded her privacy, damaged her reputation, and harassed her. She wanted $25,000. I stood in my kitchen holding the papers, feeling like the floor had disappeared under me. I had never been sued before. I had never even been inside a courtroom. I called Amy. "She is suing me," I said. "For what?" "For almost everything she did to me." Amy came over immediately. She read the papers at my kitchen table. "This is insane. Can she win?"
No.
"You do not know that. You have proof." "I also have legal bills now." That was the part that frightened me most. Karen had money. Her husband had owned several car dealerships before he died, and everyone knew she had inherited a large amount. I had savings, but not enough for a long legal fight. I found a local attorney named Ben Carter. His office was small and located above a bakery in downtown Columbus. Ben was calm, friendly, and looked through every document carefully. He read Karen's claims. Then he reviewed my texts, complaints, police report, and camera footage. Finally, he leaned back in his chair. "She has made a serious mistake," he said. "What mistake?" "She filed a lawsuit that opens the door to evidence." "I do not understand." "She is claiming that you harassed her and invaded her privacy. That means we get to show the full history between you. The complaints, the messages, the property damage, everything." Could the judge still believe her? Judges see false claims all the time. But she has a lawyer. So do you. I looked down at my hands. "How much will this cost?" Ben was honest with me. He explained the fees and said he would try to keep the case simple. Then he said something I never forgot. "People like Karen depend on fear. They hope the cost and stress will make the other person surrender. Do not surrender." So I did not. For the next month, Karen acted as if she had already won. She smiled whenever she saw me. She stood in her driveway talking loudly on the phone about court and justice. One afternoon, she called across the lawn. "You should start thinking about selling your house." I ignored her. Another time, she said, "A smart person would settle." I kept walking. Ben told me not to engage. Every word mattered now. Then we received Karen's evidence. Most of it was ridiculous. She included photographs of my recycling bin. She included a picture of Amy's car in my driveway. She included screenshots of messages where I had asked her to stop contacting me. One of her main pieces of evidence was a photograph showing my backyard camera. She claimed it was aimed directly into her windows. Ben hired a licensed surveyor and camera specialist. They visited my property and confirmed that the camera only recorded my backyard and side gate. It could not see inside Karen's house. Then Ben found something even more important. Karen had submitted a written statement claiming she had never entered my property. She signed it under oath. The camera video clearly showed her entering my backyard and destroying my plants. When Ben showed me the statement, I stared at it. She lied under oath?
Yes.
What happens now? We let her explain it to the judge. The court date arrived on a cold Tuesday morning. I barely slept the night before. Amy came with me for support. The courthouse was larger and more intimidating than I expected. People moved quickly through the hallways. Lawyers carried files. Officers stood near security. Karen arrived wearing a cream-colored suit and pearl earrings. She walked in with her lawyer, a man named Tom Reed. She looked calm, confident. She did not look at me until we entered the courtroom. Then she gave me a small smile. It was the same smile she had given me on the day I moved into my house. The judge's name was Judge Harris. He looked to be in his 60s, with gray hair and glasses. He entered, sat down, and opened the case file. Karen's lawyer spoke first. He described her as a respected widow who had suffered months of fear and emotional distress. He claimed my cameras invaded her privacy. He claimed I had spread lies about her around the neighborhood. He claimed I had called the police as an act of revenge. Karen sat beside him, looking hurt and innocent. For a moment, I felt nervous. Her lawyer made everything sound believable. Then Judge Harris looked at Ben. "Mr. Carter?" Ben stood. "Your Honor, this case can be resolved very quickly." Karen's lawyer frowned. Ben placed a folder on the table. "My client has been the subject of repeated false complaints, unwanted contact, trespassing, and property damage. The plaintiff then filed this lawsuit after being recorded committing that property damage." Judge Harris looked at Karen. Karen looked straight ahead. Ben continued. "We have video evidence, police records, homeowners association records, text messages, and a sworn statement from the plaintiff that directly contradicts the video." The judge held up a hand. "Let us begin with the video." A screen was turned toward the judge. Ben played the security footage. The courtroom was completely silent. The video showed Karen entering my backyard. It showed her pulling out the tomato plants. It showed her kicking the planter. It showed her looking around before leaving. The entire clip lasted less than 2 minutes. When it ended, Judge Harris looked at Karen. "Mrs. Miller, is that you?" Karen's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, we would like an opportunity to provide context." I asked Mrs. Miller a question. Karen cleared her throat. "Yes, that is me." Judge Harris looked down at the papers. "In your sworn statement, you said you had never entered Ms. Davis' property." Karen's lawyer spoke again. "My client may have misunderstood the wording." The judge looked at him. "The wording says, I have never entered the defendant's property without permission." What part was confusing? Tom went silent. Karen leaned toward her lawyer and whispered something. Judge Harris continued. "Mrs. Miller, did you have permission to enter the yard?" "No, but did you damage the plants?" "I was removing vines that were growing toward my fence." The judge looked at the video screen. The plants appeared to be several feet from the fence. They were going to spread. That was not my question. Karen's face became red. Judge Harris turned to Ben. "What else do you have?" Ben handed over copies of the complaint letters. He explained how Karen had repeatedly reported me for violations that did not exist. Lisa from the Homeowners Association had provided records showing that every complaint came from Karen. There were 11 complaints in 4 months. All 11 had been dismissed. Judge Harris read through them. He stopped at one. "This complaint says Ms. Davis kept dangerous animals on the property." "Yes," Ben said. Judge Harris looked at me. "Do you own any animals?" "No, Your Honor." Karen interrupted. "I saw movement in the backyard." Judge Harris stared at her. "Movement? It could have been an animal." Ben handed over another document. This complaint claimed my client built an illegal storage structure. Photographs taken the same day show there was no structure. Judge Harris looked at Karen again. Mrs. Miller, did you verify any of these claims before making them? I was concerned about neighborhood standards. That is not an answer. Karen's lawyer tried to redirect the case back to the cameras. Ben presented the report from the camera specialist. The judge reviewed the angles and photographs. The camera does not appear to record the plaintiff's home, he said. It makes me feel watched, Karen said. It records the defendant's gate and backyard. She installed it because of me. Ben nodded. That is correct, Your Honor. She installed it after months of unwanted contact and false complaints. It then recorded the plaintiff entering the property. Judge Harris removed his glasses. He looked tired, not confused, not uncertain, just tired. He looked at Karen's lawyer. Mr. Reed, what exactly are you asking this court to do? Tom stood slowly. My client seeks compensation for emotional distress and invasion of privacy. Based on a camera that does not record her property? Tom did not answer immediately. Judge Harris continued. And based on police involvement that occurred after she entered the defendant's yard and destroyed property? My client disputes the description of the event. The event is on video. Karen suddenly stood. She has ruined my neighborhood. Everyone turned toward her. Judge Harris looked up. Sit down. Karen remained standing. She moved in and started changing everything. People used to listen to me. The board used to respect my concerns. Now, they act like I am the problem. Judge Harris' voice became firm. Sit down, Mrs. Miller. Karen slowly returned to her chair. The judge looked at her for several seconds. Then he closed the file. This lawsuit is dismissed. Karen's mouth fell open. Her lawyer reached toward her, but Judge Harris was not finished. The plaintiff has presented no credible evidence of harassment, invasion of privacy, or emotional harm caused by the defendant. The evidence instead shows a pattern of unreasonable complaints, trespassing, property damage, and a false sworn statement. Karen looked like all the air had left her body. Judge Harris turned to Ben. Has the defendant filed a request for legal fees? Yes, Your Honor. Tom stood quickly. We object. I expected that. The judge reviewed Ben's paperwork. Then he looked directly at Karen. Mrs. Miller, people do not get to use the court system as a weapon against their neighbors. This case should never have been filed. Karen began shaking her head. Judge Harris continued. I am ordering you to pay the defendant's reasonable legal costs. I am also referring the sworn statement issue for further review. Karen whispered. No. The judge ignored her. Additionally, you are not to contact Ms. Davis directly. Any necessary communication must go through the Homeowners Association or legal counsel.
He looked at me.
Ms. Davis, based on the evidence, you have done nothing wrong. I felt tears filling my eyes. Not because I was sad. Because for months, Karen had made me question everything. She made me feel like I did not belong in my own home. She made me afraid to park my car, work in my garden, or invite my sister over. Now, in less than 20 minutes, the judge had seen exactly what was happening. The case was over. Karen's smile was gone. Outside the courtroom, Amy hugged me. You won. I can breathe again, I said. Ben shook my hand. She counted on you being afraid. I was afraid. You still showed up. Karen walked past us with her lawyer.
She did not look at me.
A few weeks later, she paid my legal fees. The Homeowners Association also issued her a formal warning for filing false complaints. The board created a new rule allowing penalties for repeated misuse of the complaint system. Karen stopped texting me. She stopped standing near my fence. She stopped commenting on my lawn. For a while, she barely came outside. That spring, I replanted my garden. I added tomatoes, peppers, basil, mint, and strawberries. I also put my wind chime back on the porch. One evening, I sat outside with Amy while the wind moved gently through the trees. The chime made a soft sound. Amy smiled. You know she can probably hear that. I know. Does that bother you? I looked toward Karen's silent house.
No.
For the first time since moving in, my home felt like mine again. People sometimes ask whether I regret calling the police or refusing to settle. I do not. Karen believed money, confidence, and a lawyer could scare me into submission. She thought taking me to court would force me out of the neighborhood. Instead, the courtroom became the one place where she could not control the story. She brought accusations. I brought evidence. She brought confidence. I brought the truth. And the judge ended it in minutes.